Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sports Section, Long Island's longest-running call-in sports programming, but during COVID, the callers are the hosts. Matt Mankiewich here, Ken Fermin, Zach Wilson, and with us right now, and joining us for as long as she likes, softball superstar Melissa Rahrich. Welcome to the Sports Section, and guys, let's get it going.
All right, so Melissa, thank you for joining us tonight on the Sports Section. How are things going back home in Colorado?
Oh, they're going pretty good. Spending a lot of time with my family, my nieces. I have a new nephew that was just born as well, and then just been working, coaching, and playing slow pitch softball too, actually.
What is that transition like for you? Because you're one of the best fast pitch pitchers, especially in the game of softball, throughout the America East, and honestly in the NCAA. What has that transition been like since your final games?
Honestly, it's not bad. I have a lot of fun. I do really well, and I'm an outfielder now, so I'm no longer a pitcher or an infielder.
Makes it a little bit fair. Not too much. You can still gun down a few players at your behalf.
Yes.
Yeah, again, just reflecting on your incredible career, superstar, barely scrapes the surface. Again, one of the best careers, definitely in Stony Brook program history. But you could also, again, add to that in America East history. Your consecutive Player of the Year awards, your outstanding career, both as a pitcher, 55 wins, fourth overall in Stony Brook history, as well as your batting statistics as well. It's absolutely remarkable, just the numbers you put up. How were you able to remain so consistent, not only through college, but even through high school and throughout your entire career as a softball player?
I think that I was just really fortunate growing up. I had older brothers and sisters that I got to watch play. I learned from them a lot. And a lot of what I've learned over the years has been just by observing. And I think that once I got to Stony Brook, I never really knew what I had in store for me there. I never could have imagined all of the accomplishments that I was able to have there as well, and the player that I was able to become. And a lot of it was just from the coaching staff. I had someone over the course of 5 years, and it really did go so fast, but I accomplished more than I ever really thought possible.
Yeah, and you really had quite this career at Stony Brook. In 3 of the 4 times that Stony Brook was in the America East tournament, you made a name for yourself by being part of the all-tournament team, along with going back-to-back America East Player of the Year. How do you see getting those accolades as your team just had those chances to be pretty close to a tournament berth, but making it look very competitive to get there?
Yeah, my sophomore year was when I won the award for the first time, and obviously after my freshman year, I saw who won it the year before. I was like, yeah, she's amazing, and it was really never something that I ever thought would be given to me. In my sophomore year, Coach Bryant pulled me into her office before we left for the conference tournament, and she was like, you need to prepare yourself to make a speech tonight. She was like, because you're named Player of the Year, and I was like, oh my God. I was like, I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell any of my teammates. I wanted it to be a surprise. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody. And I kept it a secret. And I walked into the locker room, and we were literally getting ready to go on the bus. And one of my teammates was like, oh, what was that? I was like, oh, it was nothing. She was just telling me something. She's like, oh, I bet she told you she was Player of the Year. I was like, yeah, probably. I was like, no. But and then even my junior year, when I found out, I didn't really tell anyone again. It was just really special. It was cool to see my teammates' reactions too, and just their support, them being happy for me and all of that. And even my second year, my parents were on the way to the conference tournament, and they were watching the live stream, and I hadn't even told my mom yet. And she was crying in the car watching the live stream on the way because she just had no idea. And it was just super cool to be named back to back. And of course I wanted that third one, but it's okay because Courtney Cashman's a heck of a player too.
Absolutely. And just quickly, could we just touch on that sort of respectful competitive rivalry that brewed between, I'd say, the two of you as well as Don Baldrick, where it was really, you trio were the best in the America East when it came to pitching. And every game was so fun to watch because they were so low scoring and competitive, up until the last one this season. Could you describe what game day was like heading into battle against a competitor like her?
For me, it was mostly just not like hyping them up and just like sticking to what I knew how to do, what our team knew how to do, and not feeding into like what everyone else says about the other team. And I think that that's super important. And it's just always realizing like what we can do as opposed to what the other team can do.
And with that as well, you also were stellar against UMBC throughout your career, as well as a lot of competition in the America East. Just on that, what was it like preparing to go on the mound or in the pitcher circle, especially sometimes consecutive times throughout the week, maybe pitching 2 or 3 times throughout a week or twice during a weekend?
Conference was always, those games for whatever reason were always they just meant so much more. They were always so much more competitive, and nothing ever prepares you for conference play until you feel like what it's like to play conference. Like we tell the freshmen all the time, like you'll find out when you play it. Like you can't describe it. It's just a different feeling. And everyone just always plays to like a higher standard. Pitching multiple times in a week isn't too bad. I definitely, over the course of my career, became more efficient, and it was nicer on my arm. So I was a lot less sore and like less fatigued, so that it was easier to do that. That also goes to Coach Letts because she definitely helped me in that regard. But just doing whatever you can to help the team win, and if that means throwing back-to-back games, just emptying the tank.
Yeah. So Melissa, in your career as playing as a two-way player, by being able to be both an efficient pitcher and a batter, was there ever any time where you're able to draw inspiration from stars in the past that have also been one of the great two-way players of all time, such as Babe Ruth?
Yeah, and like even more recently, Rachel Garcia, who goes to UCLA, even though we're the same age, she's amazing.
That's a great point.
Yeah, she's actually in Tokyo right now playing for Team USA, and there's probably only like 2 recent college athletes on that team just because everyone else is at such a high level play and they're so much older. But she was a phenomenal pitcher, a phenomenal hitter, and she was able to do basically what I did. And it's just cool to see other people do it as well, because it definitely is a rare thing. Not a lot of pitchers get to hit for themselves, and I think I would have been so bored if I wasn't allowed to.
Absolutely. And glad you brought up Rachel Garcia. She was someone who I felt like mainstream-wise, like, us here, we knew her just following the College World Series and those postseason games. But I feel like mainstream-wise, she really got, her name throughout, full season and throughout. She's someone who was a back-to-back winner for the Collegiate Women Athlete of the Year award. Her rise was a Honda Cup winner, so a lot of talent there for sure. And with that, do you really sense, also kind of touching on Babe Ruth as well as Shohei Ohtani in MLB for the comparison there, do you really see a rise in the two-way player happening throughout younger softball play, like high school and collegiate softball play, in the near future?
I think so. I think you made a good point and brought up some really good athletes, and Odyssey Alexander is another one from JMU who we also got to actually play.
Yeah.
But I think that having people like that in the spotlight just inspires kids, so they see that like it's possible. Like if they can do it, I can do it. So I would say so, and hopefully they can learn and just see that, or learn from the people who do it well, see them on TV, have them in the spotlight and learn from them and know that they can do it as well.
So Melissa, while being an efficient player, both pitching and batting, I say, you made a name for yourself as far as batting in your career by establishing yourself as a program's all-time leader in RBIs with 167 and hits in 246. Seeing as how you're trying to put a focus on both sides, How has that not stopped you from being one of the best batters in Seawolves history?
I have always attributed myself as a better hitter. My pitching, I did okay in my opinion. I got the job done.
I think you did a little more than that.
I had never seen myself as just a pitcher. I knew that I had like a lot more to offer. My hitting though, really, I don't know. It just really took off. And it maybe because I am a pitcher, it helps me be a better hitter, and I'm able to pick up spins and stuff like that. But I've never really just like identified as just a pitcher.
Truthfully, I think a factor as well has just been your power. Again, hitting so many home runs again throughout your career, high school and collegiately, just total bases as well. You're able to grab 415, which is the second most in program history. And one of the reasons was I think there were pitchers afraid of your power, so they just straight up walked you. I mean, what was that like preparing yourself to be not only a hitter, but a power hitter at that, where you were hitting the ball pretty deep more often than not. And even if they weren't home runs, they still ended up doubles most of the time, which is another statistic you rank pretty high up on for Stony Brook.
I think as I got older, it got harder because obviously people were more aware of what I could do. Obviously, in this past year, I was hit just about as many times as I was actually walked.
Yeah.
There was a rough couple weeks where I could not go a game without getting hit. But it is ultimately, it's a compliment. It's them trying not to throw it over the middle. But it is tough, and I had to learn that and know like pitch selection and realizing that like sometimes I'm only going to get one good pitch. And I had a really hard time with that at the beginning of this last season, just because I felt like every game I'd only get like one pitch to swing at. So it was hard for me to build at bat to at bat if I'm only getting like one swing. So I definitely had to just like relax, let it come to me. Coach Higgs worked a lot with me on stuff like that, and just like the outside aspects of the game is not just like what you can do physically, but it's a lot mentally as well, and just preparing for like the small moments or the small chances that I was going to get, just because they may not come often in one game.
Yeah, 13 hit by pitches to 18 walks this past season, just to your point, including a pair of hit by pitches against Maine early in the season as well. And just to kind of find it here through the total bases, you got a lot of those as well. But it's something interesting as well to me, and it goes back to the point Zach brought up earlier regarding Babe Ruth, was to me your batting stance. Obviously, you're not a Jordan Herring or a Kyrie McFarland. You're not a slap hitter. You're put in that 2, 3, or 4 spot because of your power and home run hitting ability, or at least extra base hit ability. And your batting stance, you're often your back foot's hugging the back part of the box. It's as close to being in the line as you could possibly get. You know, legs spread out. You got a low front kick, but you're able to drive a lot of power in your swing. You kind of talk through the process of how your swing evolved over the years in terms of getting the batting stance comfortable for you.
Yeah. I came to Stony Brook. I had the open stance, so that was already a me thing. When I was younger, I used to go to the front of the box. I was way up there, but I learned over time, and Coach Higgs helped me with this as well, that if you're in the back of the box, you're going to see the ball longer and you're going to see the break. So you'll see where exactly the pitch is going to land. And that's really important too, because if you're up in the box, the ball is probably going to move as you're swinging at it. So you don't necessarily know if it's going to land a ball or a strike. So going deeper in the box just allows you to see the pitch longer. It allows you to see the movement on the ball. And letting the ball travel is so important in softball. And if you don't hit with depth, you're not going to be a very good hitter. So you have to see it as long as you can. That was definitely something that I learned. Just being patient. A big thing for me too was staying in my legs and not just using my upper body. And the more that I was able to stay in my legs, I was able to lift more balls. So
absolutely. And you brought up a great point too, in the sense of with softball, it's so unique compared to every other sport, including baseball, because of that underhand pitching. Especially, you see pitches that are unique to the sport compared against something like baseball. You know, there's a lot of more risers up in the game of softball. Screwballs, those drop pitches as well. You don't see that in baseball, but those are very prevalent in the sport of softball. So can you kind of talk to us about the mechanics behind all those pitches, both as a pitcher in terms of adding those to your repertoire, which is something you did very well, including with the heater, and also preparing for those as a batter, trying to swing for power?
Yeah, I think it helped me. I think they went hand in hand. I think that as a pitcher, it helped me understand a little bit more of what the ball's going to do, and I was able to recognize the spins when I was hitting. We, in our hitting cages inside, we have machines that we crank up and we put spins on them. We put rise balls, we put drop balls, so that helps us a lot if you go in there and just hit extra and just work on those pitches, because a lot of the time the machine's going to move it more than an actual pitcher will. So if you can hit the machine, like, you're in a good spot. As a pitcher, over the years, I definitely developed a lot more pitches. I came in my freshman year, I hardly threw a drop ball, and that was my go-to pretty much. So that was super important as well with the amount of innings that I had thrown, was just learning new pitches, being willing to learn new pitches, working on new things just so that I had something new to throw to the batters. And that was definitely my drop ball over the course of 5 years, is something that I developed and I started to throw really well.
Absolutely. Just the evolution in your pitches. As you said, so for someone like yourself who covered you, so we came in at the same time, obviously, covering you for the Statesman and then for WUSB, that was obviously prevalent where, it wasn't a problem that you only throw heaters, because as a freshman, you were still dominating the competition. But that was definitely something that caught my eye as you continued to evolve, especially last season. Was I'd say it went from being about 90% fast heaters, 10% drops, to about maybe 60-40. Maybe that's fair. Maybe a bit too generous, but at the same time, just that evolution, it was so, I thought, crucial to the success, not only for you, but for the team. And in a teammate like Dawn Balderick this past season, who is a master at the drop pitch, she throws it from insane angles and is able to get so many batters out by being called looking. And I thought it really added to the success of this team over the past year. What are your thoughts on that?
Definitely. Dawn and I are a lot different, which made it work for us.
Agreed.
She threw that screwball, she threw that rise ball, I threw the fast, I threw the drop. And since we were different, it worked really well. And we were able to complement each other. And it took a lot of stress off of me as well. And I think it allowed us to have more success when you have two solid pitchers like that, because it's really rare, especially in our conference. Having two solid pitchers like that, it takes you a long way. And it's a lot of fun.
Agreed. Unbiasedly, I think we all could agree. Best pitching tandem in the conference this season. And again, with Coppersmith, top 3 for sure. And just for the record, no spider attack involved in any of those pitches, correct?
Yeah, so you have really had a fun career with all the hitting and the batting. I'd like to go back to probably one of the most enticing games that the entire team could probably experience along with you. Back in 2019, you played St. John's, and, well, a lot broke loose in that one. At least 24 runs by the team, 25, while you were pitching and batting. You managed to get a grand slam in that game. I mean, just how wacky did it get for this team to have quite a record-setting day?
That game was I don't even know. It was crazy. Like, one grand slam in a game is, like, really cool. Caitlin Core hit the second grand slam and we were like no way. And then I got up to bat with the bases loaded, and I hadn't been like hitting that great that day, and I hit it and I was like, no way. I was laughing because I was like, no way did we just hit 3 grand slams in a game. Like, that is unreal. And I think we had like 20 some hits that game. We even got walked like 18 times. Like, there were just so many absurd numbers that game that it was just like, it was once in a lifetime.
You know that there's not really any bullpen players used that day. Can you even remember, like, whether or not St. John's only resort to, like, keeping their lone pitcher trying to start throughout the entire game, or did they have to use at least 1 or 2 more pitchers?
I think we went through 3. and they may have like re-entered one of them, but I think we at least saw like 3.
Yeah, and for sure, that's got to be like the easiest win of your career, right?
Eventually, yes. It was. At first, it wasn't like that.
That's it.
It was way closer of a game, but
I was going to say, a lot of people forget that it was a 2-0 game starting off, and
yeah, because we still went 7 innings because we didn't have the run rule until the 7th inning.
That's right. Yeah, it was still 11-5, even up until the 6th inning. It's true.
Yeah, so it had to be that way. It was already a 7-inning game because that's how it is in softball. I guess you could pretty much say that your career 2 times against St. John's was quite fascinating, especially this past season when you played against them at home. You only allowed 1 hit to them. Your team did the rest by putting up a couple. Your team won 2-0. So I guess you could say playing against the Johnnies, it was really quite fun for you.
Yeah, my freshman and maybe sophomore year, they were really good, and I'm not sure that, or freshman year for sure, we did not beat them. But it was fun this last year too, and that was definitely one of my best games that I had pitched. But that game was really fun too, and obviously that 1 hit is a little crappy, but it's okay.
Yeah, no, not the way to go out at all. But again, at the same time, still able to put up incredible numbers. And, with that, you felt you were really successful this season. And one factor which I feel like gets underlooked was your battery mate in Jordan Nowakowski, which was catcher for a lot of your games this season. I think virtually all of them. And I also just want to add in Irene the Machine Rivera as well, someone who was your battery mate throughout the first 2 or 3 seasons. So could you kind of just talk about establishing a relationship with your catchers and how beneficial that is when it comes time for you to take the pitcher circle?
It's so important. If you don't feel comfortable throwing to your catcher, it throws off so many things. Irene was amazing. I always loved throwing to her, and same thing with Jordy. She was great too. And I never had problems with either one of them. And even Corinne, like they're still set catching wise. Corinne is going to do really incredible things. She was really fun to throw to, but it makes all the difference. You throw so much better. You throw so much harder. Your spins work so much better when you're comfortable with your catcher as opposed to someone that you're not comfortable with.
Yeah, just dive deeper. What are some of those conversations like in terms of, again, what are some things you connected the most with your catchers on and off the field? And B, what were some of the things you both, I guess, went through in terms of as you continue to establish your pitches and, get to that point where you're comfortable, as you said, throwing those drop balls or those screw balls?
Yeah, I think just working with them, and they know kind of how to correct your pitches for you. So if you're struggling and you throw a few that don't work as well and you need help, the catchers are there to help you as well, and they know how to help you and fix it, as opposed to always having to rely on like the coaches. So if I wasn't able to make the adjustment myself, I know that the catcher would be able to tell me what to do, which is really important for their job too, is being vocal and paying attention to how to throw certain pitches and the mechanics and every different pitcher's mechanics and knowing how to help us and what works for us.
Oops, yep, sorry about that. Yeah, there we go, muted. And now unmuted. Is with that as well, what is it like in terms of this year, especially grabbing that leadership role? Because you've obviously been a leader. Frankly, you've been a leader since your freshman season. A, I'd like to know if you agree on that. But B, this season, especially with how unique the situations were in terms of separation because of the pandemic and social distance.
Our team leadership is what carried us through the season. I think that we had amazing team leadership. Our leaders were able to show the younger girls on the team, like, how things work here, even though it's a weird year. Like, this is still how Stony Brook softball plays softball. This is how we practice. This is how we work out in the weight room. Like, handle your business in the classroom. And I think that our leadership is what carried us and what allowed us to be so successful. I think that our leadership was tremendous, and each leader that we had on the team was a different type of leader. So over the course of my 5 years, I definitely became a more vocal leader. I was fine with saying what needed to be said in those moments, and which is fine. I was happy in that role. I was happy to say the things that needed to be said. But there are other leaders that are more quiet, and they just lead more by example, which is perfect too. There's room for everyone in that regard. But I think that our leadership was tremendous. And I even think that the coaches would agree that that's what kept our team solid. It's what made our team successful. And it's what it's going to continue to allow the team to be successful, even though we left, is that we laid a foundation of how Stony Brook softball runs. And we showed them what it means to work. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, you could even go back to last year to kind of seeing that growth in the team. You know, it was a bridge season, of course, but it's got off to one of the best starts in program history. Ultimately ended 10-4, but got a few big wins, including that 2-1 victory over Georgetown, the 9-5 win over Columbia, Dawn Baldrig's first no-hitter that she threw against Cornell. And, you know, even with that, you know, I thought you could really tell that this team found that next gear. What was that like during in between your first two seasons and your last two, where you really saw the team grow and honestly, as I said, reach that next gear?
I think that it had a lot to do with the players and just their willingness to come to practice and work hard. I don't think that was ever a problem for the team, and that was something that, like this year and last year, we handled our business, and we were very businesslike, and no one had to be told like to work hard. Like it was just something that we did, and it was really, really fun, and it made it easier as a leader because you don't have to consistently tell people like what they should be doing. They just knew what to do, and everyone fed off of each other, and it allows you to raise the standard of how to play, and by holding each other accountable and just knowing how good the players were on the field and making them play to their standard.
So, also, reflecting back on this past season and what turned out to be your final credited win as a pitcher in your career, it was the Game 2 of the doubleheader at home against UMass Lowell, and you did fight hard. You eventually got the win because your team came through for you in the bottom of the seventh, thanks to McFarland and Osmer's RBI singles that brought home Shauna Nuss and McFarland. How do you see that? Had to see that to be quite a competitive game for your last ever win.
That was a really fun game as well, and Lindsay definitely came up clutch. We obviously weren't hitting as well as we could have been, but pitching and defense kept us in that game, and our hitting came through when it needed to, and that was definitely a really fun game to be playing in.
Yeah, agreed. And with that as well, it was, as you said, unconventional. Just got in the sense of because of who stepped up, as you said, newcomers in Lindsay Osmer and Kyra McFarland. And McFarland's someone who last week was praised by your Colorado mate in Riley Craig, as she really saw a lot of her play in McFarland, and as someone who's really going to step up over the next season. And as I said, there's a lot of bright pieces for the softball team in the upcoming season, even with the graduation of a lot of great seniors, like the aforementioned Nowakowski, Craig, and yourself. So who are you really excited to see get to that next level next season?
Kira is definitely one of those players. She's one of the most natural athletes I've ever seen in my life. She just does stuff so effortlessly, and she does it so well. And it's really fun to see. But for me, I'm really excited to see Jules grow. I see, like Riley mentioned, but I see a lot of Jules in myself, and she's so much fun to watch, and she always gives out her best effort, and she's definitely going to be a really great hitter for Stony Brook, and I'm really excited for her to continue to grow as a player because I definitely can see a lot of similarities between us two. So it'll definitely be fun to watch her. And same thing with Corinne. Corinne has so much potential as well. I'm really excited to watch her play, and I had so much fun pitching to her. She's a little stud behind the plate.
So with your departure, we expect Dawn Baldrick next season in her senior year to be the star pitcher again for Stony Brook and try and continue to pick up what she has done over the last 2 seasons. But who do you think is going to try and step up and fill your slot in that position?
Pitching-wise, they'll still have Shelby. Shelby does a lot of amazing things too, and like I mentioned before, how different Dawn and I are. Shelby is a whole nother type of pitcher as well, and she has some incredible spin on her ball. So she's definitely going to be able to help Dawn.
Well, we have seen flashes of Shelby Denman during the season, but not as much as you and Baldrick. So how do you expect her time next season to increase, in seeing how Megan Bryant is going to give her a lot more reps to try and complement Baldrick's pitching rotation stats?
Yeah, she'll definitely get a lot more pitching time, and as she gets more pitching time, she's only going to get better. When she was a freshman, sophomore, she got a lot of pitching time. So she has the experience and she has the capability. So as you see more innings, you just get better and better.
Agreed. Again, it was hard to kind of take yourself and Dawn off the pitching circle when you two were dealing this season. So, I understand kind of reserving her to only 20 innings, but you're absolutely right. She did go 5-1 in that average season. And even in 2019, still made 19 appearances and got 10 wins, including a career high 11 strikeouts against Bryant. But I'm also excited to see a couple of the new prospects joining this team. One in Ashton Milas coming out of Honal Community Rock Valley in Illinois. She's someone who I think is going to complement that rotation real well, especially after being named the D3 Pitcher of the Year as a sophomore last season.
Yeah, I am not entirely sure. Like, I don't know much about her.
I don't think much of the conference does. I think she's going to shock a lot of people. But I'm glad you said that, just because I kind of want to bring it back to how it was for you first entering the conference, because I felt like, were put under the spotlight more so than most freshmen, just because of how dominant you were in high school in Colorado. And you're a top 15 prospect. Your stats are pretty good as a collegiate athlete, but you were slashing .592, .629, 1.042 slugging as a hitter, alongside a 55-13 win-loss record as a pitcher coming out of high school. So did you ever feel any pressure in terms of having to live up to how tremendous you played in Colorado?
Not really. High school softball is definitely a lot different. The competition's not quite the same. But I think as far as pitching goes, it's kind of just a role that I grew into. I'm not sure that even like me coming in freshman year, I wasn't supposed to be what I became. I just kind of came into the role. I embraced the role. I was able to do a lot of great things for that freshman year. And I think I just kind of went with it. I think Coach Bryant went with it, because I don't even think in her head when I first came in that I was going to be the starting pitcher, just because I was a freshman. Like, it's a big transition. It's a different transition. And just because I had so much success in high school, like, it's not quite the same. And the competition's not even close to being the same. But I think it's just kind of a role that I grew into and that I found myself into.
Absolutely. And there were a trio of good pitchers there as well, in terms of Taylor Peachin, Lindsey Hughes as well. But I thought from the moment you took the circle, you were outstanding. Not only as a hitter, 13 multi-hit games as a freshman, but I mean, pitching-wise as well, you, as you said, threw the most innings. You're a first-team all-conference, 7-4, .23 ERA as a pitcher just during conference play. I mean, you were lights out a lot of the time. I do remember a lot of no-hitters. Or, sorry, not no-hitters, but shutouts. And near no-hitters. Yeah, a few one-hitters. I do remember that during your career. Yeah, and with that as well, just transition again, just focusing more towards high schools because and a lot of listeners from back home in Colorado tuned in today. Thank you all for joining us on the sports section. But again, what really drove you to wanting to become a softball player and playing it collegiately?
Yeah, I said earlier, I have two older sisters and an older brother. My older sisters played softball. I was always at the softball fields. I grew up there. As far as like everyone always comes up to me that are like older than me, like my sister's friends and like people that they played with. They're like, I remember you when you were little. Like you were always at the softball field. You always had a ball in your hand. You always had a bat. Like you were always up against the wall, like pitching a softball. Like it was like just something that I watched my siblings and I just knew that I wanted to play. I was able to watch my sisters. I watched my brother. He was a three sport athlete. He played semi-pro baseball like in Canada. So I was able to watch them play and I was able to learn from them and I was able to become who I am because of them. And I definitely can say that they helped me grow into who I was, and watching them always inspired me and it allowed me to become even better.
Melissa, Matt here. I want to know, especially when it comes to our coaching staff's recruiting beyond the Eastern region, and they do use the whole country. How much did you know about Stony Brook before you were originally recruited?
I knew absolutely nothing. So the way it works is we play competitive softball in the summers, and Coach Bryant happened to be watching us play, and we had like a recruiter out in the stands that represented our team, and he like came back. He's like, "Oh, this coach is like interested in you guys. She watched you guys play," and she came back that weekend, watched us play again, and that was probably in July, and I came in November on my visit to Stony Brook, but I literally knew nothing about Stony Brook. I had to Google it. I couldn't have told you anything about it. I honestly was like, that's probably like a D3 school. I had no clue.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that as well, you weren't the only Colorado pickup as well. As we said, Riley Craig as well joined the team. And now even Karen Farland, I believe, also of Colorado. So what was that like having, I guess, someone from a similar background? We'll focus on Riley Craig here, joining in at that same time and kind of being in a similar position where, Stony Brook wasn't really on the radar until they came knocking.
Yeah, I think it made it a lot easier for both of us. We had known each other since we were little, and it just allowed that transition to be easier for the both of us. And we knew that we always had each other. We were like a sense of home for each other, and it definitely allowed us to both be successful at Stony Brook.
And again, just tremendous high school play. What was it like representing Brighton, your hometown, up through high school? I'm sure there were were there a lot of schools interested in recruiting you for high school play?
Yeah, I actually was not supposed to go to Brighton. It's somewhere that my mom wanted me to go to. My pitching coach was the head coach at Brighton, so we moved just so that I could go play for Brighton. But it was a lot of fun. It was a 5A school, so that's the biggest that Colorado has to offer. So I was able to play all the other good schools. I was able to play for my pitching coach, so he helped me with whatever I needed, and he was an amazing coach. Definitely one of my most favorite coaches ever, and I definitely can attribute a lot of who I am to him. But I had a lot of fun playing for Brighton. It was different though, because I moved after 8th grade. I moved to Brighton so that I could play there, and I knew one person. So it was kind of a hard.
Oh my gosh!
It was a really hard transition for me. I was really mad at my mom for a long time for it, but it definitely ended up paying off.
No, agreed. And do you feel that helped you as well in terms of coming to Stony Brook, where similarly you probably only knew one or two people, if even that, and you're traveling across, partially not cross country, but towards the Northeast?
Yeah, it was definitely the same concept, but all I knew Riley, and I knew some of the girls that I had met on my visit. But the way that Stony Brook Athletics works is it allows you to meet other athletes. So that's definitely super cool. Stony Brook Athletics is a family. But it was definitely a hard transition because it was like 26 hours away from home. But I had always wanted to go away from home, and that was part of the reason why I went to Stony Brook as well. It's because I had a lot of local schools that were interested in me, and I was like, I don't want to play in Colorado. I want to go away from home. I want to go be independent and become my own person, and it really did work out well for me. And I'm glad that it did, because there's obviously, like, we have CSU here, and that's like 40 minutes from my house, but I never wanted to like have the option to just like drive home. Like if I'm homesick, I can drive home. Like I wanted to be my own person and figure out life that way. And I think I'm definitely better for it, going that far away from home. So I think that I made a great choice in Stony Brook in going that far away, just because it was always something that I wanted to do. And I mean, as mean as I was when I was younger, if my mom was always like, she would make me mad for whatever reason. I was like, Mom, I'm going to school in Maine just so that I'm far away from home. And then I ended up pretty close to it. Yeah. And it's just funny to reflect on, but I think that it made me a more independent person. So I'm definitely thankful for that.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming with, Melissa. I get the whole independence stuff and all. It makes you feel like you want to spread your wings. I applaud you for that.
Sure. Oh, yeah. And with that, too, I think...
Go ahead.
I was saying, with that, I think it all came full circle when you actually did return home for a series, a weekend Colorado State tournament back in 2019.
Yeah.
How fun was that, being able to play a couple games in front of your family? Because they were in the crowd. They were they were in full force that weekend.
They greeted us at the airport when we landed. They were so excited for us to be here. But that was a lot of fun, and coincidentally that was like CSU's like one of the best years they've ever had. So Riley and I on our way home were like crap, like we haven't got to play in our first weekends like at home in front of all of our friends, like all of our family, and like CSU is killing it. And then, of course, we had really bad weather that weekend.
Yeah, rain ruined it. Yeah.
Super unfortunate weekend. But it was cool to be home, and definitely just for, like, the experience of it all, it was awesome.
I got another question for you. Now that we have Stony Brook has roots in Colorado, some alumni in Colorado, has anybody called on either you or Riley to do some scouting out there?
No. Our coaches were actually just here recruiting, but they come and do it themselves, but I think that they also know that we like work with teams here, so that if we ever were to come across a player, I think they would trust our judgment in that. But they definitely are more hands-on, and they come and do their own recruiting, and they were actually here like 2 weeks ago.
Did you have a chance to visit with them or talk with them?
I actually didn't, because, of course, that was like one weekend. I was out of town with my family. We were at the lake. So I have dismissed Coach Bryant, but they definitely keep in touch with us just to see what our plans are, see how we're doing after graduation, see how they can help us in any way and stuff like that. And, yeah,
it is a fair compensation. But with that, how would you describe the play in Colorado in terms of softball, the competitiveness, the nature, just how different the games and competitors are there?
I think we have pretty decent softball here. What was nice is that the team that I played for, we traveled. So we went and played the best teams that we possibly could. For softball, you got to go to like California, Texas, places like that. They have really tremendous softball players there, but like we can compete. Definitely back when Riley and I were playing competitive softball, one of our softball teams, we were good and we competed, and we played with those out-of-state teams. Like we won, or we were able to keep up with them. But Colorado softball, it's like it's just like competitive. Like we have like the capability to keep up with those teams. We might not be powerhouses of teams, but we definitely have solid players that come out of Colorado.
No, for sure. We saw it on this team, at the very least. But it is true all throughout the NCAA. I think that was one of the more interesting things. Is you're right. It's not necessarily the first place that comes to mind when you think about especially great softball athletes. But I think you're really starting to see the emergence from more of these underrated places, and I think Colorado is one of them. And New York slightly as well. Florida, you really started seeing uptick in great softball players. I mean, how does it feel for you seeing this sport continue to grow? Obviously, besides the great mainstream coverage, the College World Series grew, getting over a million viewers on ESPN, but as well as just seeing the growth of the sport during your time playing and now coaching.
It's awesome. I think a common theme with where those best players come from is they live in warm places, so they're able to play year-round, which really helps them out. But you mentioned like the ESPN coverage, and this year watching the World Series, it was just so much fun because even if you go on social media, it was just so much more interactive, and there was just so many people like, wow, like college softball is so much fun to watch, and it's just cool to like sort of feel like our sport is respected, because a lot of the times it feels like our softball teams are put like on a back burner, and it's like it's just not fair, because it's like we are just as capable of athletes, and like we have so much passion for our sport that like we want to share with others. So it was so cool just to see people that aren't softball players watch softball, like enjoy it, want to keep watching it, and just say that it's like it's fun, because it is fun to watch. It's fast paced, things happen so quickly, and it moves so much quicker than baseball in that regard. And it's just softball is fun. It's fun to watch, and the College World Series this year was amazing.
Agreed. It was a very fun College World Series, and
So much fun to watch.
And every game, you were on the edge of your seat. Zach.
I'm here for all of the upsets.
Yeah, I don't know if we touched base on the Women's College World Series, if I missed that. Did we actually touch base
not yet.
on
I just said Oklahoma and Florida State. I mean, wow.
Well, I mean, yeah, but it's not just the fact of Oklahoma and Florida State. You also get the Cinderella James Madison Dukes looking very dominant up till then. Melissa, did you catch and see how great the Dukes were in the tournament?
I was rooting for them. Just because we got to play them. I've played them twice in my career, and I'm always rooting for the underdog, but I knew how good they were. Like I think it was sophomore year, we went there, and they were like incredible. Like they hit the crap out of the ball. Like we could not stop them, and like they're so underrated, and I'm happy that they were able to put a name for themselves out there this year, just because they were amazing and they were so underrated, but they were so capable, and they had a really high skill set and so capable. They were so deserving, and I was rooting for them the entire way.
Yeah, not fun games if you're a Seawolves fan. A 13-0 smackdown back in 2018.
Yeah, that was a rough weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you saw James Madison looking really good. You had Odichi Alexander, the best star on the team. She was really quite the standout to watch. I'm sure you rooted for her especially.
Yeah, she this season, we played them. I struck out 4 times all season. 2 of them were from her. So
that's right. We gotta talk about that as well, because one of the most incredible stats to me was how rare you struck out. And this is going back to high school. I mean, you only struck out 4 times in your entire high school career, I believe. Let me make sure I got the stat right. Yeah, and I mean, and this season as well, only struck out 4 times. A, can you remember all 4 strikeouts? And B, what is that training like in terms of being, again, consistently able to just strike the ball? Even when you're out, it's still an out in play.
Yeah, I really hate striking out. I find it embarrassing. So it was just something that I was like, you're not going to strike out. Like, you're just not going to do it. Like, I'm not doing it. So I don't know. Like, people say all the time, like, coaches are like, well, don't go into the batter's box telling yourself you're not going to strike out because you're going to. But if I'm being honest, like, that was my mindset. Like, I'm not out. Like, I hate it. I hate it more than anything. So I just always tried to make contact. I had a lot of plate coverage. I really don't even know how I do half. Like, I can hit balls on my head, and I'm like, I don't know why I just did that. But I had a lot of plate coverage, which helped me with, like, the not striking out thing. Even, like, one of my at-bats in the conference tournament was against Courtney Coppersmith. And I had 2 strikes on me, and I was swinging at anything that I could. I was like, she is not going to strike me out. Happen.
Oh,
I love the relentless that you're you're going to put out, and that is really great determination.
I also will add that this is something I'm very proud of, is she has never struck me out ever. So
I never will.
Yes.
I was saying,
good enough to know that she never got the opportunity to take you down like that.
Yeah.
But
and some bragging
on me, and I kept fouling off anything I could touch. And eventually the ball that I hit was in the other batter's box nearly, and I hit it off of the wall to the right.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah, it was this close to being a home run. Yeah.
And after that game, she, like, came up to me and she was like, I don't know how you hit the ball in the other batter's box. She's like, I don't even know where to pitch it. I was like, I don't know how I I was like, that makes 2 of us.
That's awesome.
Just swinging.
That's awesome. Now, before we let you go, we do want to talk about, obviously, what you're up to now. You said coaching, and a lot of folks listening, especially in the Colorado area, I don't know how you don't go to Melissa Rahrich as your coach. I mean, as we said, 4 strikeouts throughout the entire season, 4 strikeouts throughout high school, one of the best in the pitcher circle. I mean, what has your coaching style really been like? Have you found someone to emulate? Has it been one of your high school coaches, college coaches? Well, what has that been like?
For me, so right now I work at a facility. So I work for a place called Red Line Athletics, and there, whenever someone comes in is like, oh, like, I want help with softball, they'll send them my way. I'm the softball coach there. I'm the only softball coach there. Wow. So if they need hitting lessons, pitching lessons, whatever it is, they'll come to me. It's mostly hitting lessons right now, which is, it's a little tough for me just to do specifically hitting lessons, just because, like, I have a lot of knowledge of softball and not, like, the specifics of softball. Like, I'm really good at, like the field work and, like, stuff like that. So, like, hitting lessons and, like, pitching lessons is definitely something that I'm going to, like, continue to work at, just so that the athletes can get the best possible experience. But I'm definitely going to have to learn from other people on stuff like that, just because a lot of what I know, I know how to do it. I've done it. So being able to teach that is kind of hard. But I definitely want to keep coaching. I think I've been applying for some, like, collegiate jobs. That's awesome. Recommended to as, like, a head JV softball coach here in Colorado. So awesome. If I apply for that, I'll most likely get that job.
Oh, we believe that for sure, and I mean, well earned again after a tremendous career. But, of course,
yeah, I can see how it's going to be quite a fun search. I can see that there have been some opportunities to watch out for. You could definitely use
with that, what would your team be ideally if you have to build a successful softball team? Would it be pure power? Would it be balanced? Would it be aces 1 through 3?
I definitely think it'd be more balanced. I think that I have very well-rounded knowledge, so I can contribute in a lot of different areas. So I think that I know the game of softball as a whole, and I know more than just, like, hitting, more than pitching, more than stuff like that. So I think that I have a lot to contribute, and I think that's why I want to continue to coach as well, is because I have so much knowledge that I've learned to give back to the sport. And I enjoy talking softball and, like, being able to talk, like, with other coaches. Or I had so much fun talking to our coaching staff about softball. Like, I could sit on a bucket and talk to Coach Letts or Coach Higgs about softball forever. And I think it's just something that I want to be able to give back, is I know how much knowledge I have I have a really high softball IQ, and I think I have the potential to be a very good coach.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree there with you. So
Definitely.
I got one last question for you, Melissa. For Megan Bryant and your former squad now, seeing as they have an interesting future ahead of them, what do you expect out of who's going to be what you could expect out of a possible starting lineup come next February? A new starting rotation that will circle around Don Bodrick. What do you hope for this team going forward?
I just want to see them continue to build off of what we left. I know that they looked up to our class, and I know that they were able to learn from us. So I just want them to just go in and just have fun and not necessarily try to fill our shoes, because that could be like a lot of pressure. But I just want them to be the best that they can be, because I've seen all of their potential, and like they're there for a reason. So I just hope that they were able to learn from us so that they can continue to get better and fill those spots for us.
Agreed. And we'll wrap it up with a question from our own Mike Anderson, who covered you this season for the Statesman. His question is, of all your many school records and milestones that we previously mentioned, what was your single greatest accomplishment?
The 2-time player of the year, definitely, but this last season, breaking the hits record was really cool for me. Okay. The RBIs one, that one's cool too, but the hitting one means a lot to me. That one is just fun to say. Like I lead the school in hits.
Agreed.
No, like it's a really high number, and like the people that I beat these records with were like tremendous softball players. And as I mentioned, like at the beginning of this, all of these things were like, I didn't come to Stony Brook saying I was going to break records, because I didn't know that I could do that. And like, they just weren't things that were in my head. But as I like continued along in my career, I was like, wow, like I can actually do this. And these are things that I'm capable of. And it was just a lot of fun just to see where I ended up as a softball player, because I had a lot of success in high school and like on my summer teams, but I am so much better than I ever dreamed I could be. And it was fun. And I don't even know how I got to where I am, honestly. Like over the course of 5 years, like it all happened so quickly, and I accomplished so much more than I ever could have dreamed of.
I gotta say, from a fan and analyst standpoint, just your skill, again, both as pitcher and a hitter, is really unmatched. I did feel like every time I watched you perform, whether it was as a pitcher or as a batter, you knew fireworks were going to happen, whether it be you hitting a long double or getting it over the wall or striking out a side and wrapping up an half inning in about 3 minutes. I mean, you were dominant through and through, and you're absolutely right. 246 hits, no easy task, and it's going to be stunning should anyone ever break your record. I truly think it's going to last a long while before, if it even gets broken. And this too took place, getting those final hits during an abridged season. So assuming it could have gone even longer, you could have gone it a lot faster and added a lot more to that total. But I mean, Melissa, thank you so much once again for coming on the sports section, number one. And personally, we can't wait to not only chat with you again, but see you again when you ultimately earn your Hall of Fame acceptance in the near future. We know what's coming. You know, there's no question in our mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, Melissa.
It's 11 o'clock here on the sports section. WUSB Stony Brook, of course. You have been listening to a legend in Stony Brook softball now. Now she's graduated and looking to become a coach and maybe become a legend in that as well. Melissa Rahrich, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to have you on sometime in the future. Are you coming back for homecoming? That's a good question.
I think so. I think I'll have like the availability at that point.
Should be fun.
I know that. Yeah, I think I'll be there. I definitely plan to.
Okay, so we hope to see you then.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So, we come up on the second hour of the sports section. And we had such a great conversation going. I didn't tell everybody because I figured they could find out via other means if they get alerts on their smartphones and stuff like that, that the Yankees won.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yankees win.
9-1.
Good job.
Okay.
Going John Sterling.
The Red Sox bullpen blew up for once. 5 walks in an inning, if I recall correctly. We'll look back at the box score. 5
Yep, that's
walks
correct.
in an inning. So here is where things look worse than they actually are. And this is the point I'm going to bring up. It was brought up during the game because I had closed captioning on while we were talking to Melissa. I was watching. I'm sure you guys were doing the same thing.
Yep.
She was probably too.
In
any case, what's the Yankees' record over the past 12 games?
It feels like 1-11 if we're being honest.
So it'll be
Sounds
2
like
10
everybody's
if you won the last
talking
two.
like it's 1-11. You know what it is? 8-4.
What is it?
Wow.
That's not bad. I mean, their last 4 losses were.
Remember that they went into the All-Star break with that big implosion and that Altuve hate because we went on the air. I said we hate Jose Altuve. I went on Facebook saying that the next pitch to Altuve should be in his ear, and because that game made us forget that in the first 2 games in Houston, the Yankees did not allow a single run. Do you know how many runs the Red Sox scored in this 3-game series? 6.
Yep, so
now,
the Yankees have scored them 12-6.
Yeah. Okay. Now, of course, the Yankees scored none in that very first game, which they lost. But they had a nice bounce back. Garrett Cole doing what an ace is supposed to do. When a good pitching, well, first of all, the 1 game in 5 rule. Win 3 out of 5, you're playing 600 ball. Win 2 out of 5, you're playing 400 ball. Your first 2 pitchers, you put the wins in. Your third pitcher is often the difference. And the 4 and the 5, whatever. Now, of course, the 4 and the 5 might pick up the 1 and the 2 every now and then. If you're winning 3 and 2, winning 3 games out of every 5, you're in good shape. But your ace is supposed to stop losing streaks and keep you afloat. And we were talking about the Mets with Jacob deGrom. He, throughout most of his Mets career, of course, he went on the IL. We'll get into that. Most of his career couldn't do that because nobody scored for him. Now, this year, he's having a monumental year, and we'll get into that. But the whole point remains is that the Yankees, as bad as they looked in those 2 implosions one by Chapman and one by I was thinking Zach Britton. It wasn't him. Chad Green. Okay, Chad Green blew it. Britton's not available yet. Once he is, it would be nice. By the way, our oldest Chapman didn't look too bad doing mop-up duty. But that's a good way to get him in, get him back into it.
Gave up a lot of long fly balls.
Give up a run or hit a million times.
Amen.
Yeah.
So,
I think it was lucky, especially with that first at bat, because what was he doing? Like in that bottom of the 9th, there were 2 pitches he threw that went far away from the catcher from
oh yeah,
and He's lucky
looked like he kind of lost his
runner
grip.
on base at all in that bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, you
thank God.
definitely tell there was
I don't know
an issue.
I don't know what he was
Definitely
feeling in that moment.
Definitely tell there's a bit of an issue in terms of control, and he's been having that. That's been a consistent issue. But at the same time, I think he was still able to, as you said, no runs given up, so really no harm, no foul. But,
Right.
Going forward, I think, especially in close games, I still don't trust him with the ball. Today, it was a 9-1 lead he was able to protect, so, of course, why not give him some reps? I mean, at the same time, he's got to really focus on getting his control up.
Absolutely. But opportunities like these are the way to work them back in.
Very
and that's
true.
what they're hoping for.
That's what you want to see as a Yankees fan, is this lineup which was designed to score a lot of runs, actually score a lot of runs. And in fact, they did it without a couple of usual players as a result of injury.
Well, the big news, of course, is that not only did the Yankees do it with power, they did it with speed. Aaron Boone is using these young guys who have come up with 6 guys out due to COVID and running the bases. Another graphic that came up. 20 stolen bases, lowest in Major League Baseball. Seriously? Look, the Yankees have historically not been a speed team. Okay. They have had Ricky Henderson. They have had guys who can run. But, they basically let their bats do the work and historically have done so. But there have been occasions where the bats haven't been as powerful, so they had to go station to station. But that was the mark of a good team, too. They can beat you any style of play you like. And that's what, let's say, 1998. Tino Martinez led the team with only 28 home runs. Now, of course, the power was distributed up and down the lineup, so they didn't need anybody to hit more than 28. But you get the idea. And with no Aaron Judge, and the bottom 30-year lineup, minor league players, they take 2 out of 3 from the team they're chasing in the American League East.
Yeah,
Not
that's
bad.
big. This is a team, by the way, where they haven't gotten a win against the Red Sox all season in a full 9-inning game. Well, in any game up until yesterday, then a full 9-inning game right now. He's going back to last year. So it was absolutely big. And again, the fact they did it similarly to the Mets, where you relied on a lot of minor leaguers, okay? This lineup had folks like Ryan LeMaire, who I believe left due to injury, Trey Ambergay, Hoy Park, Chris Giddens, stepping up for you. And they were still able to take 2 out of 3. And I think that also contributed to seeing not only the power resurgence necessarily, but that contact resurgence, where there's a lot more base runners because they didn't have those sluggers they usually rely on, as per usual, because of COVID. Aaron Judge wasn't in the lineup today to smack homers. They were able to get it done, not necessarily with small ball, because there were a few homers littered there, but they were able to get it done in terms of getting some singles and doubles and stacking them up.
Yeah, I mean, you really see what it's like for the Yankees to try and pull through their own little injury bug that they got. Of course, when did they not have that injury? They've had that for multiple years, and yet you make it think now what happened in 2019 didn't really seem like that much, believe it or not. I mean, I wasn't sure because now you get some of these players who I've really never really heard too much about. I mean, remind me again what it was like in 2019. There were 28 players that went on the IL, and even the players that were stepping up in that time was pretty much players that many of the Yankees fans are probably already familiar with.
What was that? I'm sorry, I just got sidetracked for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about how the Yankees have been working their way through so far this stretch with the injuries that they've had, especially the ones who are part of that COVID list. Kind of reminds you about how they did the same thing 2 years ago in that season where they made it all the way to the ALCS. If you recall, 28 players on the IL, and yet the players who were stepping up were pretty much players that many Yankees fans are familiar with right now. Still,
Right, exactly. Well, actually, that really happened the year before. You're talking about 2017. 2016 is when that really started to happen at the trade deadline, when the Yankees got rid of a bunch of dead wood and brought all those guys up. And they contended for a little while. The big problem, of course, was that they couldn't score runs. And they started to do that, and then reality started to rear its ugly head, and they fell out of the race. But the Yankees have, first of all, with so much season left, there was no reason to give up hope. I have to correct myself. Not 8-4, 7-5, still not bad.
It's above 500, and that's what matters at the end of the day.
Right. And looking ahead to the schedule, what do they have going for them? Well, they do have Philly. First of all, again, 2 games at home, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then they have to go back to Boston. And this is a little bit different from the way they started out this series. Boston having their number. Now Boston ran into a little bit of trouble. Now the Yankees are on the attack, so to speak. And I like their chances. Take 3 out of 4 there. That would be nice. I'm not expecting sweeps, although you're going to need to get some sweeps. But you take, let's say, sweep the Phillies. Take 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox, 2 out of 3 from the Rays. You've gained some ground. And
but again,
seven
I
back with
think
70 to go. I think your chances are still good.
Well, your chances are really good, and especially having AL East competition upcoming in Red Sox and Tampa. Assuming hypothetically Yankees sweep those 2 series, and then both other teams lose all the games, then the Yankees are right there in first place with them. So obviously that's most likely not going to happen, but it goes to show you only really need one hot streak to regain not only footing in the race, but potentially lead the race in the AL East for that top spot. So
On
again,
the
it's
other
something
hand,
I think
a bad stretch by those 2 teams could kill them.
That's also true. That's very true. But at the same time, I think having all these new players and these minor leaguers step up, goes to show your season's not over, and this is kind of the key to do it. It's a weird blessing in disguise, but in having all of these new guys bringing a different approach to the lineup has found more success than it has with your regulars in the lineup, which is it's sad to say on one hand, but at the same time, it goes to show they're able to get it done, at very least getting on base, not committing a lot of mindless errors, and they look a lot more comfortable on the base paths. And, it's been key. And even yesterday, the big reason why they won was because of a pair of home runs back to back.
Right.
That I thought was key, which is something you don't see a lot of in Yankees games, which is the home runs, even though they aim for them. So, again, finding that identity is going to be crucial for them staying in the race. And if you're not going to trade players, which I think you should, there's a good market out there now for both New York teams to get, and both teams obviously have the cash to do it. Getting minor leaguers is the next best thing for getting those wins.
Well, fortunately, we still have a week before the trade deadline, because the Yankees are rarely sellers. 2016 was a revelation when they got rid of Beltran and basically prematurely retired Teixeira and a few other people, and Chapman, trade Chapman to get Torres, and bringing up Sanchez, bringing up Judge. So they realized that, yes, these guys are capable of giving you a few games over 500, but they were not capable of getting you into a deep postseason run. The following year, those guys were. And now they're in a situation where you were dealing with injuries and COVID, what have you, where window's starting to close and you have to open up a new one, which is why people were saying, hey, if the Yankees continue to just tread water, trade Aaron Judge. I don't think they will do it this time. They won't do it now, and they can't do it now. He's on the IL because of COVID. But it definitely alters your outlook. Number one, they're not doing as badly as their losses look. That's an important factor to consider. That bad loss to the Astros, that bad loss to the Angels, they had otherwise done reasonably well in that series. Okay? They dropped 2 out of 3 to the Mets, and they beat the Mariners on the road, a good team, 2 out of 3. Took 2 out of 3 on the road against Houston. They have a very good regular season record against Houston, despite the bad loss. Okay, so once
that
again,
Seattle series, I thought also you kind of saw the confidence of the team coming back, and it's tough to tell now because there's so many different players. But that was a series too where there were a lot more home runs than usual. There were a lot more runs the Yankees were able to score. And it goes back to consistency. There was a lot more consistency both on the mound and in the batter's box in terms of, getting on base, driving home runners in scoring position as a batter, and pitching, getting out of tough jams, which is the Yankees love to create tough situations and then give up a platitude of runs. They were able to kind of do the opposite, which was avoid those situations, even when they got into them, not suffer too much damage.
Well, there's one thing that the Yankees have that I think is better than Boston, definitely better than Toronto, and at least as good as Tampa Bay. Starting pitching. And if the run support is there, they're going to have no problem staying in the race. Because it's not the pitching overall. Yes, we had the blown saves, but for the most part, the pitching has kept the Yankees competitive. Okay, when you don't allow a run to the Astros in 2 games, that's pitching, obviously.
It's true.
So
and big factor as well is they have an ace, probably the best.
And yes, Garrett Cole right now is arguably the best pitcher in the American League. And is, the top, has the best odds for winning the Cy Young Award right now. So, and what did he do for you his past 2 starts? Shutout and shutout. Well, no, he gave up a run. Correction. Gave up 1 run to the Red Sox. But gave up 1 run in his past 2 starts, both wins. That's what an ace is supposed to do. So, optimistic talk about the Yankees. Can you believe it? Far cry from what we were talking about last week. About the Yankee and Met report cards that break. Now.
Yeah, we know.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I know about how that optimism is. We know that where they stand right now with their records, which is still, of course, over 500, but 3rd place or 4th place, whatever place it is, in the AL East, they still have a lot of competition. Getting past Boston, the first place team tonight, good. The 2nd place team, the reigning AL East champions in Tampa Bay, and the AL champions as well in rating. And then you also have Toronto as some studs on the team, including Vladdy. So, there's going to be a lot more competition rounding up, and this AL East race is fun. I predict that race is going to go right into mid-September.
You know what? Mid-September, late September. You know what, though?
Probably to the last day.
Like I just said. You can have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You can have one of the best hitters in baseball. The Angels can have Shohei Ohtani. Where are the Angels right now?
Third.
Treading water.
Because Mike Trout is still not available, but he could be coming back soon.
That's not the reason. That's not the reason. With Mike Trout, they'd be a 500 team. Their pitching
could be better than they are right now.
Their pitching is lousy. Outside of Ohtani, who you're relying on a guy who hits on his days off to be your ace. Yes, he's a phenomenon, all that wonderful stuff. We've talked about it ad nauseum. But beyond Ohtani, there's nothing there. And you have two teams in that division who are better than they are.
Three, actually.
The Astros and the A's.
Third place.
Yeah, exactly.
And fourth.
The Mariners, too. Three teams, You're right. Three teams. So you can have a great individual star in your team, but unless you can't, well, Ohtani can pitch, but he can only do it every 5 days. So.
Yeah. And again, that's the benefit, as I said, having the benefit of Garrett Cole is a great strength to the Yankees, especially when he's got to go in, because he was struggling, when the spider tack ruling came down. But, past couple games, 11 plus strikeouts. Only other Yankee to do that is Ron Guthrie back in 1978. I mean, he has looked back on his game over the past couple he's pitched in, and that's key, especially going late in the season where you're really going to need to buckle down on great starts and try to save your arms in the bullpen for some of those tighter games, number one. And number two, raising up the rest of the rotation by being so good and having the rest of the crew follow suit.
You hope.
Matt. Yes.
Yes. Now, here's another thing I want to see and hope to see, and it's too early to tell if it's going to turn things around. Some commentary was made during the game that the Yankees, because of the fact that, like we said, the minor leaguers in the lineup have not tried to hit home runs all the time, which is helping them. Now, is that going to spread throughout baseball? Because remember what I said about the sticky stuff ban, that I thought it was a crutch, a lame excuse for bad approaches at the plate. Well, all of a sudden the runs are up, and they're saying because the pitchers aren't throwing with the sticky stuff, I don't believe it. I think a calling card went out to everyone. Stop swinging for the damn fences. And I think that's what you're going to see. You're not going to see home run derby all the time. Because another one, okay, now we can segue into the Mets. The winner of home run derby 2 years in a row, Pete Alonso, okay, what has Pete Alonso done in the field so far this year? Not a hell of a lot.
Well, you make some great catches.
Mets are counting. There you go. And the Mets are counting on him to have a big second half as part of their effort to maintain their lead in the American National League East, rather. That was Freudian. But anyway, the whole point still remains is that Mets have had great pitching, which have kept them competitive and in first place. But the bottom line for them, they haven't hit either. They've hit even worse than the Yankees have. So a turnaround there could lead to a double-digit lead in the division because the Nationals are treading water. The Braves lost their best player for the rest of the year and possibly a good part of next. So now Michael Conforto's got to do this every day. They had two bad losses to the Pittsburgh Pirates in this opening series out of the break. They salvaged one despite the fact, well, first of all, it was a bad call. Okay, the ball that rolled foul and 3 runs scored. Okay, So they're down 6-0, and they chip away. And Michael Conforto hits a home run to put the Mets over the top, in the top of the ninth inning, and they pull out a win. Well, that they're going to need to do a lot more of, because the Nationals, every now and then, and they're in the one step forward, two steps back mode right now, but they get hot for a week, and they will overtake the Mets.
No, agreed. It is close with how, I don't want to say inconsistent the NL East is, but you're right. The Braves and the Phillies especially, only 2 games back, because they were able to produce some comebacks of their own to win this weekend as well. You know,
Yankees can help the Mets.
Yeah, it's true. Absolutely. But you're right, where, again, any one of those teams can really go on a 7-3 streak like Philly is right now and continue to chip away and try to take over the Mets' top spot right now. Philly's only 2 games back and technically only 1 win behind New York. Just a loss differential, 3 makes a difference. But for this Mets team, again, they gotta stop falling behind in so many games. And number 2 is start producing, seeing the bullpen of today as opposed to the bullpen of yesterday, where after Taijuan Walker's meltdown where he gave 6 runs, the bullpen threw flawlessly, gave up no runs, and was a big reason why the Mets were able to successfully come back. And again, seeing players like Conforto, who needed to have a big year, had a very slow first half, injuries played a part in it, but also just being in a slump throughout most of that first half, coming out of a big statement game like today is going to be necessary for the Mets, not only hold first place, but for guys like Conforto to get those contracts that he's really looking for and staying on this team for the future.
So now you got 3 more in Cincinnati before you get home, and you got the Blue Jays. So a little bit of back and forth here. Yankees get the Phillies for a couple, can help the Mets, and the Mets get the Blue Jays next weekend at Citi Field, so they can help the Yankees.
A lot of second-place teams duking it out with first-place Mets and a fourth-place Yankees. But you're right. You know, time for winning is now, and this is where you really start to see those contenders come out. Is series like these, straight out of the All-Star break, you know, amongst the best in their divisions. And again, it's going to be tough for the Mets. No DeGrom, as we said, he's out for at least 10 days. Another injury dealing with his right arm and tightness there. You know, it is tough to see, especially with this team down so many pitchers. Syndergaard, Carrasco, Yamamoto, for example, you know, all those guys. You know, for me, the trade deadline, I think, is crucial for both of these teams, for the Yankees and the Mets, especially when it comes to pitching. I mean, I think it's a failure of a trade deadline if you don't add some more arms to your rotation. Whether that's a guy like Jose Barrios for the Mets, where you trade a lot of prospects and get a great starter to fill in for some of those injured guys.
I'm looking at Kim Kirchin right now. He's basically saying the same thing, especially when it applies to the Yankees.
That's true, yeah. The numbers support that. I mean, you know, the reason why we both have that same mindset is the numbers support that. You know, it's their Achilles heel has been, you know, those arms and the lack of it.
Well, the one main problem Mets had in the first half when it came to scoring runs is that a lot of their big hitters were just out.
Yeah.
And Alonso and Conforto in particular are expected, or basically begged, to have good second halves, because that's really what stands between the Mets and the division title. It's not the pitching. And the pitching's good enough.
Right. Starting especially. Yeah, so there's nothing to take away. Even Stroman and Walker, who had bad weeks or bad series, you know, still pretty good. But for the Mets, hitting is going to be even tougher, missing Lindor for the near future with an oblique strain. I mean, you know, this wasn't a great weekend, but I thought they did salvage and prove they are worthy of that top spot in the NL East with a great comeback today.
By the way, we all know what happened yesterday at Yankee Stadium. The fan hitting Verdugo of the Red Sox with the ball. Apparently, Verdugo threw the ball to a Boston fan. The Yankee fan caught it in the stands and threw it back. You know what happened to him, right? Lifetime ban from Major League Baseball games anywhere. Lifetime ban from attending any Major League Baseball game. Harsh?
It's like,
well, throwing stuff like that and hitting somebody, it's a shot across the bow. A little warning to fans, because I remember vividly when the Mets were going up against the Braves in the pennant race in 1999 and facing them the LCS later in October, and John Rocker mouthing off about the Mets. And whenever John Rocker came out to pitch, he sprinted across the field. And he had to, because you saw the objects being thrown at him. You know those little toy bats they sell? I saw one of them barely miss him. Now, John Rocker did a lot to antagonize Met fans. It's been said that, especially in the 70s, that Yankee outfielders would get batteries thrown at them in Fenway Park, or even in other rival parks. So you don't see it necessarily unless you're watching them. Well, first of all, the big problem is when you're watching the whole field, you're not paying attention to what the outfielders are dealing with unless that's your job. The one thing that Yankee Stadium has, maybe even more so than most parks, maybe more so than Citi Field, the important thing they have is that they got cops everywhere. Not just regular security people, cops.
Straight up NYPD, and they do not play.
They do not play. They watch you like a hawk. You out of line, clomp right on you. Okay? So they saw that all the way through. They were able to pick out who did that, and that was it. Not only that.
Really, as they should.
If you're close enough to throw a baseball to hit a player, you're in an expensive seat.
Right.
I mean, all the seats are expensive, but they're really expensive
especially
down there.
in stadium. Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah, and
so
it's been a series of incidents. And honestly, folks, that's no reason to play stupid games because you're only going to end up with stupid prizes. Now, this goes back to the NBA playoffs when those early string of games, there was an incident popping up every day regarding fans, comes getting out of line. Now, there's nothing wrong with cheering against players,
stupid prizes.
Yep. It's it's not much to ask, but please don't be throwing stuff at the players because you're only asking for trouble. And if the player isn't going to give you a receipt, be a lot of receipts coming your way from the fans or the authority there.
There is one exception that is allowed. Throwing your hat on the ice after a hat trick.
True.
That's why it's called a hat trick. Okay? That's the only exception. You know what's funny?
Or if you're up in Florida,
when the Nashville Predators first started out in the NHL, now remember, Nashville, they know nothing about hockey. So somebody scores a hat trick, and some people start throwing hats on the ice, and security people go nuts. Don't throw anything on the ice. It's tradition. Oh, really? They had to learn that the hard way.
Oh, yes. And, there's been a lot of fun stuff in hockey being thrown. Obviously, the spiders, the octopus as well. I say the spiders, the rats. The
rat.
Octopus.
Well, you know the story behind the rat, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Florida Panthers, second year of existence? Playoff run to the final.
First year.
First year.
Yep.
So, Scott Mellenby, prior to a game, sees a rat in the locker room. And basically does a wrist shot. The rat bounces off the wall, kills the rat. He scores 2 goals in the game. So the players are saying he had a rat trick. So people start throwing rats onto the ice after that. The octopus, back in the original 6 era, there were only 2 rounds of playoffs. So you had to win 8 games to win the Stanley Cup. And octopus has 8 tentacles. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, and you got to think with the Kraken and their expansion draft coming up, they got to be looking at this, thinking, what sort of traditions can we bring on? You know, if you like the octopus would work well with them, you know. Again, their name is the Kraken. You know,
right?
Yeah, I would like to see what they pull off with that, and who knows what kind of luck they're going to have with players that they're going to get who is unprotected.
Oh, they say this expansion draft is richer than Vegas's.
Absolutely.
I think Carey Price is pretty much featured at the top of that list of players that Kraken can get.
I agree.
Oh, they're measuring him for the uniform now.
Hold on.
So I can't
No
wait to see how
doubt
he chooses
about
on
it.
Wednesday, or is it Tuesday?
Wednesday.
He's going to Seattle.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. He'll be the starting goaltender day one.
Now, that's the beauty. You know, no team has had a better expansion draft than the Kraken. You can just tell just by the multitude of players. And, of course, you're paying a $650 million price tag, so that's to be expected. The most ever in pro sports.
This was like for an inaugural team. I regret seeing how it played out for the Vegas Golden Knights a few years ago.
And for Vegas
to
work,
a playoff team from year one.
Exactly, and that was a team a lot of people wrote off. There's no writing off this Seattle team, no matter which way you look at them, because they are going to be set. Yeah, no matter really who they pick up, whether they aim young or they get those veterans like a Carey Price, like a PK Subban from New Jersey.
Kraken. I believe that the Kraken are going to try and be as much of a big team in the sports world as much as their NFL counterpart is, with Russell Wilson being away for the Seahawks.
Everybody from now on, the Vegas Golden Knights set the standard for expansion teams. Stanley Cup final the first year. Okay, so you know that's what the Kraken are shooting for. Is it the right thing to do? Well, if the talent pool is as good as people say it is, yes, it is. First of all, build your fan base immediately. The days of people leaving their, either grizzled veterans or minor leaguers who are unprotected, people that they don't want unprotected, the days of the first-year Islanders, the first-year Capitals, long, long gone. An expansion team now, and they want this. If they're expanding into a city that didn't previously have a team, they don't want the team to be bad for 10 years before they get good.
Absolutely.
They want that team to be competitive immediately to establish the league in that city, which is why the system is different now. Okay, we finally, at 11:39, get to the NBA Finals.
Well, quickly before that, I wanted to ask your guys, just looking locally in terms of who are you guys predicting the Kraken to take for both the Rangers and the Isles? Because I got 4 names here that are pretty likely going to get picked up. Looking at the Islanders first, you got someone like Jordan Eberle, who has 33 points, including 11 in 19 playoff games, with 3 years and a 5.5 average per year coming up, as well as Josh Bailey, who I thought was a big surprise that he wasn't protected. And he, to me, is likely going to be their pick. As Josh Bailey coming off another tremendous year, and similar to Eberle in terms of salary, except he has $5 million next year and then $7 million combined over the last 2 years.
Well, here's the nice thing.
I don't believe you said this before. If you said anything about the Islanders, I don't know if there was a problem with my speaker, but if you guys didn't say anything about the Islanders, how big do you see this moment right now where Lou Lamoriello is making all these moves, including trading practically everything away including Andrew Ladd, to Arizona, getting nothing, but the most important thing is the free cap space that they have that they can use to get big players, and a lot of people looking for some.
Big.
Yeah, I'm sure that Islanders fans are really looking to see whether or not Lou is going to try and use that to get some big time players. I see that they're already looking at players like Zach Parise, who could be a big time.
Well, Zach Parise would be a nice add. Now remember, Lou had him with the Devils and lost him to the Wild because Parise's from there. So now that the Wild have cut him loose, he could be the added scoring punch the Islanders need. Of course, one thing you got to remember is that the Kraken have a cap too. So they can leave expensive players unprotected because the Kraken aren't going to grab them unless they can make an impact.
$81.5 million to work with.
You can also get Landeskog too. You get both of them. I mean, there is no limit, and the Islanders are a team that can really make a good playoff run, that can really attract some big stars, that could give the Islanders that much of a chance to keep running the table.
Yeah, the pieces have really fallen in the right place for the Islanders, and you're right, they really are a piece or two away from making it, at the very least, to the finals. I mean, they were only a game short last season, or this past season, and again, they're going up against a team that managed to get way over the cap, number one, and number two, managed to ultimately win the entire thing in the Lightning. So, I mean, they
can probably practically imagine the fact that this is the second season in a row that the Islanders are one of the only teams in the Stanley Cup playoffs to pretty much push the Lightning as far as they possibly can.
Agreed.
Like last season,
that was the finals.
Won the whole
it
Stanley
was.
Cup playoffs.
No doubt.
In the bubble, they won in 6 games against Dallas, same way they won in 6 games against the Islanders. And remember this past season where it was pretty much one of the toughest series in the postseason for any matchup. All the Islanders forcing 7 games against the Lightning thanks to Beauvillier's goal in overtime, Game 6.
Now remember this. One of the reasons why it's so difficult to repeat in the NHL is the cap. Because you're knocking on the door of it usually when you're building a cup contending team and can't keep it together the following year. That happened to the Bruins. That happened to the Blackhawks. That happened to the Red Wings. It's very difficult to repeat for that reason alone. It happened to the Penguins.
Yeah. Penguins were able to do it, and again, especially with coming off COVID, caps are only going to get smaller and smaller. So that, the cap space is every bit as crucial now, I think, as ever been. And for Seattle to have $81.5 million to work with. Again, it's interesting because I'd agree in terms of you want that star player, headline player, go with Carey Price. But there are injury questions surrounding him. Especially he's coming to New York tomorrow to get checked out on his hip.
But here's the next thing. Marc-Andre Fleury is proof of the pudding. Or John Van Beesbrook. If you want to go back 25 years.
That's true.
John Van Beesbrook is the reason the Panthers got good quick.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. But at the same time, the surplus, that surplus of spoils is there because they got guys like Chris Dreiser, who I believe will likely be the goalie if it's not Carey Price. He'll be the starting goalie. And he'll be coming from Florida as well, ironically enough. As well as potentially looking at someone like a Malcolm Subban, who's been going around the league, whether it be Chicago or Vegas. And it's not too bad to have those two as a tandem. Or even Forsberg out of Nashville, I believe. But at the same time, looking at the Rangers, I think Seattle's going to get a steal in a player like Colin Blackwell, who had 22 points in his 47 games, and his 12 goals matched what Alexis Lafreniere put up this season, despite Lafreniere playing 10 more games than Blackwell. He is a tremendous, productive player, and he's a guy where when he was on the ice, the Rangers were averaging about 2 goals per game, almost 3 goals per game, to be honest. So this is a guy who just manages to find the puck in great situations and put it in scoring scenarios. So he is a guy who I think is really going to be a strong third liner, potentially second liner, probably third liner for this Seattle team. And Seattle, again, we're going to be talking about it next week a lot more for sure, but they are going to have an incredible roster, probably the best we've ever seen across all sports in terms of expansion.
So, something to look forward to. NHL past couple of years. First of all, the season ended late, shortens the offseason, and as a result, all the off-season events keep everybody busy. Because I can tell you from personal experience, the NHL has the deadest off-season in sports.
Yeah.
Because, and it's true, because players, coaches, front office, league employees, everybody, we take our vacations in the off-season. We're ready to go first week in September. But when summer is your off-season, you take full advantage of it. And, yes, the NBA has the draft, but even the NHL, once the draft and free agency are done, nothing. Dead quiet. And people like it that way. So, now at 11:47, we get to the NBA Finals, which, of course, are deep into July this year. Would have ended a month ago under normal conditions. And after first two games, there are a couple of people out there who make a lot of money for their opinions, saying that the series was over. Nope.
What fools. What fools.
Yeah, well, that's what they said. That's what they probably nearly said about the round two between the Nets and the Bucks, and once again, the Bucks are making a stand.
Or even the semis with the Hawks and Milwaukee, where they were also down too, and found a way to come through.
Yeah. So now the Bucks are on the precipice of winning it all.
Both these teams looking for their first ever championship in franchise history. And we figured that this was going to be very enticing.
The Bucks won with Kareem and Oscar Robertson. And he wasn't Kareem. No, he did become Kareem as a Milwaukee Buck, because I have the basketball card. But he was still Lou Alcindor when he won the championship. So, but the whole point is that another team that got super lucky, drafting Kareem, getting Oscar Robertson, who, as everybody knows, once averaged a triple-double, and with those two guys, won a championship. In the middle of the Knicks-Lakers era, where it was basically those two in the finals slugging it out. They snuck in and won a championship in that era. So that tells you they're pretty damn good. But the Bucks haven't been of much consequence since, until, of course, they got Giannis Antetokounmpo, who has 2 MVPs and no rings. So, but on the other hand, another guy who needs a ring is Chris Paul. But that's starting to look slimmer and slimmer. But the way this series has been going, you can't necessarily rule it out.
It's true. Anything could happen, and we saw that. A big reason, going back to last week, it was Phoenix up 2-0, and momentum was fully in their way. But I thought one of the big things that really caused this shift was the fact that you really saw the rest of the team step up to support Giannis. Giannis, has been averaging over 25 a game regardless, and he had tremendous games as well, back-to-back 40-plus performances, no short task. But Chris Middleton really stepped up and taken a leadership role, complimenting Antetokounmpo as that 1A, not as a 2, as a 1A, which is tremendous because, again, those are two scorers you can rely on. So virtually every time they touch the ball, find a way to get in the basket. But I thought last game, the biggest benefit came from Jrue Holiday. And he's a tremendous defender. Okay, that's not news. But his offensive play in Game 5 was, to me, the reason why they won that game. He was due for a good game because he was really in a slump scoring-wise throughout much of the finals. And again, you got to factor in great defensive team like Phoenix, great defenders like DeAndre Ayton and Baste. It's not going to give you any free points unless your name's Giannis Antetokounmpo. But even then, Giannis was not scoring as well at the start of the finals. But again, Drew Holiday stepping up, giving Milwaukee another player there to rely on. Brook Lopez last game. Just seeing team basketball is really what's done it for Milwaukee to get back and get within the game and win it all. You got your one or two scores that are going to get you 75 points, but everyone else has been complimenting them and getting 15, 20-plus points as well. And Phoenix hasn't been able to catch up. And even when they try, they're unable to get through tough defenders like Antetokounmpo and Holiday. As we saw yesterday, tremendous showcase of defense from Milwaukee at the end of the game to not only force a Devin Booker turnover, having an incredible series, but respond with an alley-oop dunk with 10 seconds to go.
That tells you everything you need to know. Well, first of all, even though Milwaukee's up 3-2, we're not going to write Phoenix off just yet, even though the next game is in Milwaukee. So
they're 9-1 at home.
Yep. And this could be it. It's been actually, it is 50 years since Milwaukee last won that championship, because their history otherwise is basically bracketed between what you see now and what you had then, and a lot of insignificance in between. So, and let's face it, when was the last time Milwaukee had a winner in anything, unless you count the Green Bay Packers?
The Green Bay Packers.
That's it.
Yeah. I mean, really, this is really just...
Well, the Brewers have never won a World Series. They've only been in one. And that was 1982.
Yeah, and the Brewers...
Almost 40 years ago.
The last thing they were ever close to, the Brewers, was back in 2018. They were the top seed remaining in the NLCS until the Dodgers outdid them in Game 7 up in Milwaukee.
Yep.
Yeah, so for the Bucks, this is definitely a bit of a long time coming, I'd say, over the span of the last few years. The last two before this season for Milwaukee, they were the top seed in the NBA playoffs, but getting outdone by the lower seeds, such as the eventual reigning champions in the Toronto Raptors back in 2019, then getting done by the NBA Finals runner-up in the Miami Heat last year, and now they have that ultimate opportunity with the big superstar in Giannis and his supporting cast of Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez. And just really, you got to expect that this is definitely something that this team deserves. They really deserve this. After the last 2 years where many people would have probably expected them to win it all, they finally have that opportunity by taking down teams that were really tough to overcome. A superstar-looking team in the Brooklyn Nets, an Atlanta Hawks team led by a furious and powerful Trae Young, and you can tell the first step in this playoffs for the Bucks to get to where they are right now is to overcome their loss in the playoffs last year to the Miami Heat by getting their ultimate revenge, sweeping them. And I think from there on out, that just gave them the confidence to really just hold on to their wins against the Nets and the Hawks.
You know what? We have a few minutes left, and this is one thing I want to get your opinions on, because July is traditionally the deadest period in sports. Usually there's only baseball going on. We have the NBA Finals going on this time around, so it makes it a little bit more interesting. But what we also have, I mean, if you surfed the three broadcast networks for Fox, the three traditional ones, the old ones and one new one, but if you surf the channels this afternoon, you know what you got? You got X Games. You got 3-on-3 basketball. I see Sports Center reporting on Summer League 5-on-5. You got all these filler sports, and which is also why the old wide world of sports was so much fun, because they had all kinds of crazy things going on with that. But the important thing here is watching a little bit of this Summer League basketball. There are a lot of has-beens on these teams. A lot never was on these teams. but the play is so intense and so aggressive, it seems like the NBA has tried to rule out most of it. But you see a lot of that raw play in these games that you haven't seen in a long time. Or am I wrong?
No, it is different for sure. You said that gritty, definitely more, I would say up close. I don't want to say old school because the scoring is still very high and, during those summer league games. But, it's definitely a lot of folks with chips on their shoulders, and they bring a certain intensity that in parts the NBA can't match just in terms of safety. And another reason just being, just the play styles are different. I mean, we've even seen that with the Olympic exhibitions so far. And, the big news of the U.S. dropping consecutive games to start off their exhibition of play. It's because you really are seeing. Yeah,
Team
absolutely.
Nigeria beats Team USA with Kevin Durant on it.
And Damian Lillard, yeah.
They don't even have their best player because he's in the NBA Finals right now.
Yes,
No
it is.
joy.
It is true. Kevin Durant would probably be the best, but at the same time, it goes to show, you're really seeing this emergence of first off, of different play and entertaining play at that, and it's succeeding, really showing, the NBA is not necessarily the only game in town anymore in terms of successful basketball. This reign of dominance, I don't think it will end. I think U.S. is still favored for gold, in my opinion. But at the same time, you're really starting to see this explosion of international flavor enter the game. And it's really bringing a different dimension towards the league that honestly isn't something I would have ever predicted 5 years ago, or even more recently, about 4 or 3 years ago. It is great to see.
I don't feel the NBA has gotten soft. I
No.
think the NBA, a lot of the aggressiveness has been ruled out of it.
Yeah. There's,
That
it
you
is
do
definitely
intense on
favored more.
defense, you'll get called for fouls.
Yes, it's more favored for the offense. And,
You don't
we've
think
seen
it's
that
looking as
during this
soft as it was
finals.
back in the old days, don't you think?
What's
It's
that?
not that.
It's not as, definitely not as, it is softer just in terms of a safety perspective, but no, there's still an intensity there in the NBA, but you're starting to see a lot of other leagues match it, which is not something you would have expected. And that's not a bad thing at all. It's a great thing for the sport of basketball. You see it in college sports as well, college basketball. And it's one of the reasons why March Madness is such a draw is because you're starting to see that really peel into the rest of the best basketball in the world, whether it be those summer leagues or the Olympics. Basketball is changing and for the better because it is getting more dynamic, more varieties entering the game of play. It is making it fun.
And the quality is getting better worldwide, which is the exact reason why they brought the Dream Team in 1992 and let professionals compete in the Olympics to grow the sport. And the sport has grown. That's the most important thing, I think. Okay,
Agreed.
No Stony Brook sporting events coming up this week. Football will start practicing still in about a week or two. And we're going to have more and more. Some of the alumni, some of the current players. We'll be bringing you the interviews and everything like that on upcoming sports sections. But it is 11:59, 34 seconds. So it's time to call it a night here on the sports section. On behalf of Ken Fermin, Zach Wilson, and also Melissa Rahrich from the Stony Brook softball team, now an alum herself. Hope to see her at homecoming, among several of the other people we've interviewed over the summer. I'm Matt Mankiewich. Have a great sports week, everyone.